What if I told you there are only 2 things that you need to become fluent? Would that make you feel relieved because it takes some of the complication and overwhelm out of becoming fluent? Well, that's exactly what you'll learn today. The first thing you need is, of course, input, knowledge coming in, knowledge that you've gained. And how do you gain this knowledge? Well, by consuming. And there are 3 different ways that you can consume, that you can get input, and they relate to your senses. You can read with your eyes, you can listen with your ears, or you can use your eyes and ears with watching, like you're doing right now. Of course, this makes sense. You already know this. In order to become fluent, you need input. You need knowledge gained through consumption. So if this makes sense to you, put input in the comments. Now let's make this interactive. What are some of your favorite ways that you can get input through reading? Put one favorite way in the comments. Well, of course, for reading, you can read articles, you can read newspapers, you can read blog posts, but even reading the comment section of a YouTube lesson, this YouTube lesson, or any other social media video, you can learn a lot by reading the comments. Keep in mind, you will learn a lot of slang English and inappropriate English, but still, you can get a lot of input by reading things. Even when you're driving in your car or you're commuting on the train or subway, you're exposed to input. You see advertisements that you quickly read. And I'm sharing these examples because I want you to understand that you get input, consumption of the language in so many natural ways that you probably don't realize. And that's why you want to always look for simple strategies to maximize your input, but without necessarily spending more effort. So let's brainstorm one together. What could be a simple way that you can get more input of reading English that would not take you any more time or would take you a small amount of time? Any ideas? Share any idea in the comment. We're just brainstorming. So how about this? You could change your cell phone, your device, your computer to English only. And then everything you see is input in English. And again, it may seem like a very small change, and it is a very small change. It's certainly not something that takes a long time to do. But simply by looking at your phone, looking at your computer, and seeing English, you are getting input, and that input is helping you become fluent. Input. Put that in the comments 3 times just to show you how important it is. Input. And I want you to look for ways, get creative, find ways to get more input without putting in a lot of effort. So reading, how about listening? This is an easy one, listening. Well, you're listening to me right now. Maybe you're not actually watching the video because you're putting on your makeup or preparing lunch. So you're just listening, you're getting input. Podcasts are a great example of listening. What else? How else can you get input through listening? Put your examples in the comments. I know you know them. And by sharing these examples in the comments, I want you to be able to look in the comments, get that input for reading, but also brainstorm many other ways you can maximize your input. Of course, you can listen to music. You can listen to music as you're preparing lunch, as you're putting on your makeup, as you're commuting, as long as it's safe, of course. You can listen to anything, really. So anything that you can listen to is input. Music, podcasts, those are great ones. Now, maybe another way you get input is listening to native speakers. So there is a negative habit called eavesdropping, When you eavesdrop, it means you listen to someone else's conversation, but you shouldn't be listening to that conversation. But if you are in an English speaking environment and you're at a cafe, you're just naturally going to hear the conversations of people around you. So you can do that in a very subtle way. Now, if you don't live in an English speaking country or a country where there is a lot of exposure to English, well, you can still be at a cafe and put on a podcast in the background or some music in the background to get that listening input. Now, watching my videos. So of course, make sure you subscribe and like this video while you're at it. If you're finding value in this, like this video, subscribe, watching my videos, watching other English learning videos, of course, watching what else? How else can you get input through watching? Put it in the comments because again, we're just brainstorming. Well, I'm sure you've thought of many others. You can watch TV, movies, of course, watching social media. You're not just listening, you're not just reading. A lot of the times you're getting all three of these on social media. So although social media can be something that really takes up a lot of your time, if you use it strategically, you can use the time you're on social media to maximize your input of English. So social media, TV, movies, you can maximize your input. I'm sure there are other ways to get input, so share your favorite way and share some tips on how you maximize your input in the comments to inspire everyone else. Because remember, you can go to that comment section and get input through reading. And of course, through this input, you're improving all areas that you need for fluency, your grammar, your vocabulary, your listening skills, and your pronunciation as well. But a tip that's very important is that you should focus as much as possible on comprehensible input. What does that mean? Any idea? Comprehensible input? Well, if something is comprehensible, it means you comprehend it, you understand it. And this is where you need to be careful because yes, you want to push yourself outside of your capabilities, your current level of English. You do want to push yourself, but you don't want to push yourself so far where you're reading a news article and you don't understand every third word. And you read the first 2 paragraphs and you don't understand anything. At that point, you're not getting the input that will be most valuable to you because that isn't comprehensible input. So the best thing to do is spend about 80% of your time getting comprehensible input. And that doesn't mean you understand every word of what you're reading or what you're listening to. It means you understand the main idea. So spend about 80% of your time on comprehensible input and then push yourself outside of your current level and spend about 20% of your time exposing yourself to more advanced topics. Before we move on to number 2, I want to let you know you can get this free speaking guide, How to Speak English Fluently and Confidently in 6 Easy Steps. Just look in the description for the link. Now let's move on to number 2. Any idea what this is? Well, if number 1 is input, what do you think number 2 is? Put it in the comments. Number 2 is, of course, output. Is that what you put in the comments? And this quote by Tony Robbins perfectly describes why output is essential for fluency, because knowledge, which is input is the knowledge gained. Knowledge isn't power. Knowledge is only potential power. Action, in your case, through output, action is power. I'm sure you understand the importance of this quote. Please take a screenshot right now or pause this video, write it down. Someone please put this in the comments as well, because this is such a powerful quote. You should put this on a sticky note, Somewhere you'll see it every day. That's how powerful it is. Knowledge is only potential power. You might know all the verb tenses in English, and you spent months studying them and learning them. But if you don't do anything with that knowledge through writing an article and publishing it somewhere, or going to a job interview, or sharing your ideas in a meeting, if you don't take that knowledge and use it, what good is that knowledge to you? It's only potential power. It's by taking that action through output that you use that knowledge and gain the benefits from it. With output, you use your input to produce language. And you do this in basically two ways. You're either speaking, you produce language, or you're writing. That's how you produce language. Here's the mistake that many students make, and maybe you're making this mistake, and that's okay if you are. But students get too much input compared to output. So they get maybe 90%, 95% of the time they're getting input, and maybe it's a little bit less, a little bit more. So that only leaves about 5% of the time to produce language for output. And students do this at all levels. At the beginner level, they feel, oh, I need more input before I start producing output. But that's not true, because you can produce output at the level you are now. So produce beginner output if you're a beginner. And then when you move up to intermediate or advanced, then you can produce more advanced output. But for now, it's totally acceptable to have beginner output. But even as a beginner, you still need output. So we need to go from this side to a more balanced. Now, you might be a little surprised that I'm recommending 70-30, not 50-50. 70% input, 30% output. This is reflective of how we live our lives. Even myself, in English, my native language, I still spend most of my time getting input. I don't speak or write 50% of the time. I definitely get more input than I do output. And as a language learner, in order to reach that fluency, in order to produce the output, you need a lot of input. So this is why I'm not recommending 50-50, and it's totally acceptable to have more input than output. But we do need more balance than what I see students getting now. Here's my advice to you. Plan for output when getting input. Let me repeat that. Plan for output when getting input. This will help make sure you have that correct balance of input and output, and you're getting the two things that you absolutely need to be fluent. Remember that quote by Tony Robbins: input knowledge is only potential power. Let's use a video series of mine that students love. My series called Learn English with the News. If you're not familiar with this, I have a whole playlist on my channel. You can watch them after this video. So when we learn English with the news, well, it's pretty obvious. We read a news article together. We read, but I read it out loud. So you're actually getting both reading practice and listening practice for input. So it's very powerful. We read a news article together, and I teach you the vocabulary from that article I think you might not know. I teach you grammatical structures, and I teach you correct pronunciation. So I try to help you improve all areas of your fluency at the same time in a fun and engaging way by learning English with the news. So let's think about this. How could you plan for output when you're getting input, when you're watching Learn English with the News? Let's brainstorm this. Think of one way that you can use this lesson. You're watching one of my lessons. How can you get output? Brainstorm anything, put it in the comments. So to get output, how about when I give you a new vocabulary word and I share the definition, why don't you pause the video and repeat it out loud? So you are getting output. You're producing language. You're using the input to get output. And this fits with our ratio of 70-30 because in this lesson, you will be listening about 70% or more and producing language, getting output about 30%. So that would work. So you can pause the video and repeat the word and the definition out loud. That repetition will be so valuable to add that to your permanent memory. What else could you do? Well, if the video is already paused, why don't you write an example sentence with that new word? Or write an example sentence with that new grammatical structure? Why don't you form your own sentence out loud and get speech? Why don't you summarize the article? Because in each lesson, we discuss a topic in the news. So at the end, you can summarize the article, or you could ask some follow-up questions about the topic in that article. You could, of course, share your opinion on the topic of the article. You could create your own quiz about the vocabulary or grammar that you learned in the article. You could shadow my pronunciation because at the end of the lesson, I always read the article in full. But you can listen to one sentence, pause it, repeat it out loud, and shadow my pronunciation. So you don't have to do all of those things. I'm just giving you options. And please think of some other options, share them with your fellow students in the comments as well. And this is how you can plan for output when you're getting input to make sure you have more of a balance of 70% input and 30% output. Let's do this right now. Here's my latest Learn English with the News lesson. You can review it and make sure you get that input and output. So watch it right now.